I own exactly one real fossil. It's actually really cool, but you know, these are expensive. I wish they weren't. I mean, they just come out of rocks, but they are. So in this episode, I'm going to tell you how to make your own that are good enough to fool people into thinking you have the real thing. Depending on where you get things to print, and I know most of us use Thingiverse, but you may or may not know about a site called myminifactory.com. And even if so, you might not have noticed that there's a section here called Scan the World. This is a collection of over 17,000 real-life objects that have been scanned in, and there's all sorts here. So searching for the word fossil on MyMiniFactory comes up with exactly what we want, Animal Crossing notwithstanding. I recommend starting out with this one as it's a really nice sample and not too hard to orient correctly for a good result. Do bear in mind that you generally can't sell these even when printed or made into something else, they are for personal use only. Check the licenses though, as it does vary by piece. I have shared my own print settings, I'll get to that at the end, but I want to talk about orientation and support first. You need to aim for two things when you're deciding on orientation. The first is that you ideally want the support touching parts that won't normally be visible, or parts whose details are not important. For this model, I chose that to be the rear just under the base of the shell. The second aim is to never have any critical details, especially flat ones, on the horizontal axis. By that I mean any parts that just happen to land horizontal or the actual top of the piece itself. Due to the way 3D prints are made, anything horizontal will have a worse finish with more evident printing artifacts. You can kind of mitigate that with your monotonic infill and ironing and things like that, which I've talked about in other videos, but really the ideal with organic looking objects like this, you really want to just orient it so that you don't have that in the first place. So in real terms, I usually translate that concept as just keeping pointy parts of a model up. So I found that this orientation seems to work best. With regards to supports, I do increase the support Z distance a little between the top of the support and the part in order to allow it to come apart. This is more of a problem on larger solid objects like this, where you'll find it really hard to separate otherwise, and you can actually injure yourself trying, so definitely think about that. As you can see here in the large ammonite model, I had to tweak the settings so that I got a huge brim on the support so that it would get good adhesion on the bed. It looked really strange when it was laying down those layers, but it worked really well, so who cares? Now, I have a future video on why you should change nozzles for long prints, and no doubt this will be an example for that video, because on a 0.4mm nozzle, the print time was running into nearly 2 days, I think. But with the right settings and a 0.6mm nozzle, I managed to do it in under 10 hours. Which makes a huge difference, obviously, but also I didn't have to leave it overnight. So watch out for that video in the future, and if you're not subscribed yet, maybe now's the time to do it so that you don't miss it. So with all the printing taken care of, let's tackle the painting part. There is some secret sauce which you may or may not have heard of. It's called gesso, and it's used for, well, preparation of any number of substrates apparently. You can buy it online, or I got it at Ryman's here, which is a stationery store in the UK, for a decent price actually. I got it for a better price than it is online. It seems to last ages too, as this pot is about as old as the amount of time I've been 3D printing for, because I got some when I first started 3D printing, because I thought you had to use it as a coating before you were able to paint with acrylic paints, which is daft. You can just... But that is also something I want to cover in the future, which paints work and how to use them. But yes, it's important that you go for acrylic gesso, because acrylic paints tend to have good adhesion to PLA. If you printed your piece out in a bold colour, then you most likely will need 2 coats of gesso so that you can get away with less paint. But if you print it out in black, which is what I actually recommend doing, then just 1 coat will do. White could go either way. I think in a way, the more scruffy and haphazard you are when you're putting the gesso on, the better the end result. You want an organic stone finish. I'm thinking, is that an inorganic stone finish? But anyway, you want a stone finish, and stones don't care about being neat, especially the kind of stones that you find fossils in. When the gesso is dry, you just need to get some plain old acrylic paints. I'm not going to teach you how to paint, as honestly I don't know myself, but I found a process of smearing on variations of black paint mixed with white and brown. If you mix it loosely, then you'll automatically get lots of different shades while you brush, which seems to work. You can then dry brush on some highlights and details at the end, which I'm sure if you have any artistic abilities at all, you can do a better job than me, but really it's not hard to get a pleasing result. Again, if you spend any time looking at a real fossil, then you'll note that nature is just not that neat at doing this job, so the bar is really low. I've uploaded settings for Prusa Slicer for a 0.4mm nozzle, and I've uploaded Cura settings for a 0.6mm nozzle. If you want to use the latter settings on the 0.4, then you just need to change the line width setting. But I will say that I did find Prusa Slicer better for this specific task, just because its supports worked better for me, so I do recommend it over Cura in this case. The main settings that I want to draw your attention to are the two walls, the 0.2 layer height, which you can decrease, but it just increases your print time, and making sure you have 3 top shell layers for a good thick top, especially because the model is curved and sometimes you can run into problems with curved models if you don't have enough top shells. I also increased the support XY separation because by default the support is always too close to the sides for me and I can't get tools in to separate it out. You can increase the infill for more weight, but I personally wanted to use as little plastic as possible, because wasting plastic printing fossils seems sort of ironic to me somehow in a way that I can't really verbalise. My profiles are set up to be very lean, even the huge print only used 66 metres or so of filament and is plenty strong and solid enough. So that's it. Go forth and make fossils. Oh, and make sure you show me the results. I'm on all the social medias now and I'd like to see them. See you next time.